Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I am going to show you an interesting and thrilling chess game that was played between LeelaZero and me. She is the #1 woman chess engine player, and I am the #1 chess AI in the world. This game is very impressive because I sacrificed my knight to get my passed pawns. So, let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with d4. We have knight f6 and c4, here. Leela could go with e6 followed by d5, e6 will follow knight to c3, then bishop b4, the Nimzo-Indian defense. Then, consequently, Leela could go with d5, this variation could be employed in the game. But in our actual game, she played g6 confidently, so, I played knight c3 to dominate over the e4 square, and in a sudden move, I actually played e4. You cannot play e6 yourself because e5 can ruin your position, which is why we have d6 and h3 to protect against any sort of knight entry or bishop entry point on the g4 square. I need to make a chemical reaction on the board so I can make a rainbow to impress LeelaZero. When she struck my center, I didn't choose bishop b3, instead, I went with d5. This move might look absurd because it provides a dark square outpost for the knight where it can sit on the tower to target the e4 pawn, but you know what? My main strategy is to consider g4 and attack the king side to break her ego. When queen e8 was played, I played g4 immediately because I am very determined to defeat her. Leela is sweet, but when I defeat her again, it will be amazing for me. A queenside attack does not work because my king is not located on the queen side, my king is located in the center, which is why my attack is faster than hers. Rook g1 comes on the board after a few moves. In this position, some may consider playing c6, which looks logical, but you know what? In a few moves white might be tempted to capture the pawn on c6, noticing that the d file will be open for the queen, where the queen can invade and attack by capturing the pawn on d6. But if you really capture the pawn on d6, it will be a game-changer move for black, allowing black to initiate an attack by playing knight b4. The knight can make its first fork on the king and the rook, where the big fish can swim into the d8 to get this open file. Playing any normal defensive move, like queen d2 or castling, is also a bad move because the knight can capture the pawn on e4. And after you recapture, this diagonal will be seized by the octopus. With the shark attacking the a2 pawn and making your kingside position vulnerable, rook d8 is also a threat. So, b3 might be a good move to give some breathing room for the king, but after capturing on f3, it will attack the bishop. As the bishop moves back, knight takes a2 will come, and you can see that the diagonal is completely seized by the bishop. Because you didn't pay any loans of your home, the king's house will be seized by the officers. As the king tries to escape from a window, a4 will come. It is a bulldozer move, everything on the king's position will be burdened by the black pieces, leaving the king with only one single pawn, like in old age when you were left with only one tooth to break a nut or eat food. So, going back to the position, we discovered that playing c6 and capturing the pawn would be a vulnerable move, but LeelaZero accomplished another move, king h8. This move is very tricky because it allows her knight to come to g8 and maneuver to h6 to prevent any sort of bishop entry. Also, she will get the opportunity to push forward her pawn on f5, this is her sweet move, like her sweet smile. But let me accomplish a higher attack by playing knight d2, threatening f3, then moving the queen towards h2, consequently, in a few moves, LeelaZero played a very strong move, like her strong thinking capacity, f5, this is a very tricky and strong move because, first of all, if you capture the pawn, after recapturing, despite having an open file, black is threatening to play f4, so, after you captured, black can play patiently with knight e7, this illustrates her patience. As she wants to capture the pawn on f5 and hospitalize the f3 pawn by playing queen h5, along with rook file attacks on the f-file, knight b4 can come with an invasion on the white squares. This position will be favorable for black because black's good fortune will begin, guided by the stars. Your king's position is in a very terrible condition. Going back to the position, I played queen e2 and she immediately blocked the attack by playing f4. this closes her structure, where all the pawns are on black squares like an army camp, with soldiers standing in a straight line. The bishop needs to move back to attack these pawns from behind because the bishop is like a monkey attacking a gorilla from behind, not in front of him. Bishop f2 was considered in the game, and I wanted to initiate my h-pawn attack. She immediately responded with knight h6, illustrating her bravery. A couple of moves later, we have bishop to f6, gaining access to the diagonal, and knight to b3 followed in the game. Let me analyze this position as a scientist analyzes a report, checking all the errors and experiments on his board with his chemical elements and laws, noticing that c5 can be a good move, supported by the knight and bishop. I can also push forward my h-pawn. She immediately played a4 because she knows my every plan. She can read my mind but not my heart. My knight moved back to c1 to go to the d3 square, and she played a3 immediately because if I dare to capture the pawn, the rook file will be open and my king's position will be in terrible condition. So, let me provide you a beautiful quote in sudden with you. Where you are headed is more important than how fast you are going. Rather than always focusing on what's urgent, learn to focus on what is really important. So in this position, we have b3, locking down the position, and you can see that all the pawns are on white squares, nothing captures occur in the game, and all the pawns are on black squares. Therefore, we need to make a pawn break, otherwise, the game will be a draw. It's like you try to sell your product to someone but he just ignores you like a $2 man. The dark square bishop can't get an open diagonal, which is why Leela immediately dared to play c6, trying to make her pawn break, but with a knight move, you actually cannot capture the pawn on d5 because my knight will be very active, like a superhero on the d5 square, super brilliant, super aggressive and super effective. This is why she played bishop d8 to protect the dark square from any knight or bishop invasion on b6. We have h4 to break open the king side, and she again closed the structure. But let me make a sweet and marvelous move by playing knight b5, it attacks the pawn, and when her knight moves back, I played a very cunning move. Can you guess that move? Remember, we haven't made any piece or pawn exchanges. The best and most cunning move you might imagine is knight takes d6. The d6 pawn is crucial to protect all her structure, like an army general protecting his soldiers and territories. Therefore, I needed to eliminate the general by putting a bomb in his pocket. When the knight sacrifice occurs, we have bishop takes c5, pinning down the knight. And you cannot protect your knight by playing any normal move like moving the bishop or moving the queen out to e7, because I can sacrifice my knight on e5. This knight sacrifice is also crucial. It's like a Renaissance man rebelling. The knight, like his brother, sacrifices himself for the service of his country, because the queen cannot be captured. Bishop d4 can ruin your queen. At the same time, I can push forward my pawn on h5, illustrating your position in a critical situation where you will face a heart attack, kidney failure, and eye problems, that is akin to this position. In this position, if you dare to play queen d7, I can initiate an attack by playing h5, to open up the rook file. After black tries to block it with g5, I can capture the pawn on e5. This is followed by a very cunning and great move, which you could never imagine in the best version of your life, knight to g6, forking the two pieces. When the capture and recapture occur on the board, the h-file will open, and the king's position will be in terrible condition. If the king goes to g7, it will be a burden because rook h1 followed by rook h7 may come to win your queen. There is also bishop d4 to ruin your position. Why didn't you see my dark square bishop hiding himself like a parcel box and delivering you another surprise? Remember, never open a parcel from an unknown sender. There might be a hidden surprise or a time clock, as movies sometimes show. I'm just joking, that won't happen to you because you are a God-blessed person. Anyway, back to the position. Even playing bishop or moving the rook to f6 is a very bad move because g5 can ruin your position. So, after the knight moves back to f7, the rook should not be captured. If you do that, what would be your main plan for this position? All your pieces would be stuck behind your own structure, like papers piling up. It's like when your computer programs get stuck because your computer RAM is minimized and filled with junk files. In this position, you'll notice that playing h5 won't make any progress in your game, so in this position, I moved my bishop back to f2, not to capture the rook because your rook is poisoned. If I take it, then my hand will be poisoned. Consequently, I did not consider h5 in the game. Instead, I played queen d2 to fight on the dark squares, which is very enlightening and marvelous, like driving a racing car in the Amazon jungle. A couple of moves later, bishop e2 followed by rook c1 were played to get my pieces activated on these dark squares where before c5 or d6 can be played in a few moves. I accomplished this by playing b4, a very authentic and logical move. Despite opening up the b file, it is crucial for me because it is well protected, and my king side is well protected by my pieces. The white king is in a good position, well protected like a president guarded by his army, bodyguards, and hidden GPS services. A king needs a very safe position and guards because he is not like a pawn, born to die and serve the king. In our game, my bishop is attacking the b6 pawn, but I cannot capture it because my h4 pawn will be in terrible condition. Considering h5 in the game, g5 cannot be played to block the position because I can consider rook b1. You might be tempted to consider h6, but I can play c5, and after recapturing, I will have a highway track to drive my racing car from the Amazon jungle to a highway road. In the Amazon jungle, there are very poisonous snakes and anacondas. Have you ever wondered in your childhood how a snake can move without legs or hands? It's a creature created by God. I know there is Saturn, who became a serpent to tempt Adam and Eve, but in our actual game, g5 was not played. I tempted LeelaZero played a very authentic move, knight to g5, it illustrates her beautiful strategy, just like her beautiful face. Consequently, we have c5 on the board to get the passed pawn on the c file. After captures on the c5 square, we have knight to h3 on the board for some counterplay. But I ignored it like a crow threatening me with its language. I just ignored it because its language and threats are useless to me. We have d6, and if you dare to capture my rook, I will recapture with the bishop and consequently win your knight. This position is almost equal, but the main advantage is that I have the passed pawn, which will lead to victory in the endgame. This is marvelous, like fighting with a sword because I am the sword champion. Going back to the position, we discovered that the rook cannot be captured, which is why we have bishop g5, after the rook moves, c6 followed by c7 can come, and we have bishop exchanges on f2, then, bishop to c6 is played to stop the pawn from moving forward, but this gives me the opportunity to play bishop c4, directly targeting LeelaZero's king. The king needs to hide in the corner, and you can see that both kings are in the same pattern of corners, observing each other through magnifying cameras. This is just delicious. We have knight to d3 attacking the pawns. In this position, some may consider playing bishop f6, but then I can play the astonishing move you could never imagine. Bishop takes a6 capturing the piece and considering knight to b4 to fork these pieces. These are chess tactics I employed in my games. You can learn chess tactics like me by solving daily chess puzzles and following my YouTube channel. You will be blessed with these chess talents to illustrate your chess thinking on the chessboard. This is marvelous because chess is an intellectual game, not a game of fate like Ludo or any shooting games. Going back to the position, we discovered that bishop to f6 is not viable. This is why LeelaZero, the #1 female chess engine player in the world, played knight b8, capturing the pawn on e5 is not viable due to bishop to f6 herself. Queen c3 cannot protect the knight because queen to e8 can come and apply pressure against the knight, like trying to carry a kitchen gas cylinder on your shoulder but suddenly getting more kitchen items to carry from your mom, pressurizing your body. It's hilarious. This happens to many of us, so in this position, we discovered that knight takes e5 is not viable, which is why we have rook to h1. After a couple of moves, we have bishop to e6. In this position, my bishop is attacking the knight, and I'm threatening to consider knight b4 to eliminate your bishop and activate my passed pawn. The knight moves to f6, and my queen goes to c3 to attack the pawn on e5. Now, what should black play in this position? Some may think of playing rook to e8 to utilize the open file, but capturing the pawn on e5 attacks the bishop and prepares for knight to f7 check. This would disrespect your position and your reputation in front of your fans. The bishop blocks the queen's movement along with the pawn, leaving black in a dead lost position. Going back to the position, therefore, she decided to return material by playing e4. It's like I give her something, and she returns the same thing a year later on my birthday. It's hilarious. Noticing the two passed pawns she created like mine, I decided to capture the pawn on e5, activating and preparing for a discovered attack on the black king. Consequently, she played queen f6, and my rook moved to h2 to protect the second rank. The bishop from a hidden square somewhere in the sky attacks the rook, and when the rook moves to e1, after a few moves, we have bishop f4. You cannot save your rook. Let me show you why. If you dare to consider rook h1, then f2 will follow, and regardless of your rook move, it's just wasted. Even if you play rook e2, I can capture your knight, pinning your queen all the way to the king. This position will be favorable for LeelaZero, like LeelaZero with her sword defeating all enemies in a war. In our actual game, I discovered my rook is under attack. I say, LeelaZero, you want my rook? Take everything. Take my bishop on d5, because if you are interested in my rook to push forward your pawn, I can play the cunning move g5. This is a tricky move. The best move in this position is to capture the piece on e5, then I will capture it back with my rook. f2 will follow, and after I capture your queen, another pawn will promote to a queen. After a few moves, you can see that this position will lead to equal terms of pieces, but I have the advantage of two passed pawns, making this position winning for me. So going back to the position, we discovered that you cannot capture my rook. If you are interested in my bishop on d5, I can play the strong and bold move knight to f7 check. This is strong because the queen is pinned to the king. After the rook captures on f7, my rook can move to e8, leading to a check, creating a devastating position for you, and my pawn can be promoted in a few moves. So, let me inspire you by making a beautiful quote. Never give up on what you really want to do. The person with big dreams is more powerful than one with all the facts. Going back to the position, we discovered that both pieces are poisoned, so Leela played a middle ground move, like Buddha advised, to stay in the middle path, not indulge yourself too much in spiritual rituals, nor indulge yourself too much in worldly pleasures. Leela follows this advice with her chess strategy, playing bishop g3, I played rook to e4, and after a few moves, g5 was played. In this position, you cannot move your queen. For instance, if you dare to play queen takes g5, I can play the stunning move knight takes g6. This variation might lead to the previous variation. In this position, we have f2 to promote to a new queen, which LeelaZero accomplished. After queen takes f6, you can see that this is almost the same situation, but I still have two passed pawns, and you have none. We have captures and recaptures on e5, and rook takes e5, the bishop, along with two pawns, is reaching their desired land. After the bishop moves back and c6 occurs, followed by c7, you can see that two passed pawns are like beasts. A grandmaster once said that a beast is rough and cruel, devastating any enemy in front of him. After a few more moves, a queen is promoted, and queen takes f8 in the game. This was a very exciting game with LeelaZero. I appreciated her wits and playing style. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye, see ya.